Jealousy in a relationship will undermine everything. It can erode all the good and lead to unsaid problems in friendships or working relationships. You may even feel justified in your jealousy. There was a relationship between Moses, Dathan, Abiram and Korah which was just as messy and filled with jealousy. However, this relationship ends with hundreds of people being instantly swallowed by the earth in God's response to a challenge. Dathan, Abiram and Moses had potentially many interactions through their lives. It seems they were always on a path of destruction. Sometimes there are people in your life that just keep derailing you. A good friend or a colleague, you are not sure how they do it, but they seem to pop up during uncanny moments in your life, sometimes at the worst of times or best moment, and yet they simply cause you problems. There are a few men who did just this to Moses, the great charismatic God-appointed leader of the Jewish people. It's fascinating to read that this outstanding man still had others in his life that would cause similar problems for him. After all he had done for the Jewish people, how could these three men, Dathan, Abiram and Korah, have such far-reaching consequences? When Moses was a young man growing up in Egypt under Pharaoh's reign, he may have had his first encounter with Dathan, raised Egyptian by his princess mother who had rescued him as a baby from the water. One day Moses was out amongst the city when he witnessed an Israelite being beaten. Moses stepped in and killed the guard in order to help Dathan. However, when they see each other again, Moses is upset that Dathan is using violence and is about to strike a fellow Israelite. Moses condemns Dathan's actions. Instead of realizing he was wrong, Dathan reacts with anger. Exodus 2 verse 13-15. He went out on the second day, and behold, two Hebrew men were quarreling. And he said to the wicked one, "Why are you going to strike your friend?" And he retorted, "Who made you a man, a prince, and a judge over us? Do you plan to slay me as you have slain the Egyptian?" Moses became frightened and said, "Indeed, the matter has become known." Pharaoh heard of this incident, and he sought to slay Moses. So Moses fled from before Pharaoh. So potentially the many tried to help turn him into Pharaoh, which led to Moses leaving Egypt. Fast forward some years and Moses returns to Egypt as a grown man. He rescues his enslaved people and is now on the way to the promised land. During this epic journey, Moses would face many issues, and some had severe consequences. First off, we have the complaining men about the manna provided as food. Is this where Dathan and Abiram strike again? A couple of men decide to keep the manna overnight, which was forbidden. It was then written. But some men did not obey Moses and left over some of it until morning, and it bred worms and became putrid, and Moses became angry with them. Moving on from the manna, another stumbling block on the way to Canaan was a serious one for Moses. Moses instructed men to go into the countryside to spy on the land. A typical recon-style fact-finding mission. Who was living there? How many? Were they armed? What were the buildings like? And is there a secure food and water source? The men come back and they are full of stories, some good, others fear-inducing. The land is absolutely perfect, full of produce and abundance, except for the giants who live there. Ultimately, they believed that there would be no way they could ever take on these giants and win. Moses is beyond disheartened, after all they have been through, leaving Egypt after the plagues, having God part the sea for them to escape, and yet they are still worried about everything. Still they have no faith in their God. These men are still complaining, still derailing the plan set in place for the Israelites. All the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron, and the entire congregation said, "If only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in this desert." Some scholars suggest that brothers Dathan and Abiram were meddling in this situation. They were documented lovers of Egypt. The way of life there was in their minds better. As the Israelites gathered for a meeting, they were in the process of deserting their God and Moses. Numbers 14 verse 4. They said to each other, "Let us appoint a leader and return to Egypt." Were Dathan and Abiram really ready to step up as the new leaders and take the people back to certain slavery in Egypt? By now God is getting frustrated. How long will this people provoke me? How much longer will they not believe in me after all the signs I have performed in their midst? As punishment for their complete lack of faith and actions, The Israelites were then doomed to wander the desert for the next 40 years until everyone from that generation had passed. They had lost their right to the land. Their children would inherit it instead. This included Moses. Moses now would never live there either as a consequence of others' actions. They now face a life in the desert. Yes, they are alive, free and healthy, but they are still not happy. These families at every turn seemed to complain. No matter what goodness came their way, the bad seemed to outweigh the good. Sometimes in life it is hard to see the blessings that may be falling around you. If you are too caught up in the negative, how will you see them? 2 Corinthians 9:8. God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. The atmosphere and overall mood of the group may have been a negative one for a while, adjusting to a new way of life, a more nomadic existence. Here is where their new society begins to take shape under the guidance of Moses and Aaron. It is around this time when the real betrayal begins. Korah now makes his grand entrance, and it is not long before he has teamed up with the brothers Dathan and Abiram. Korah was actually a man of great stature in the Hebrew Bible. He was a great-grandson of Levi, the third son of Jacob. Korah was born in Egypt, at the time when the Jews were enslaved to King Pharaoh. He had just experienced the miraculous exodus from Egypt and journeyed through the parted Red Sea. However, despite his privileged position, Korah was not content. He had become dissatisfied with Moses and Aaron's leadership. Basically, it was all because Moses had appointed Aaron as the high priest and not his family. You can easily imagine this group of men outside their tents at night standing around a fire, moaning and complaining about how good the old way of life was, and all what was now going wrong under Moses. The people who supported Korah, Dathan, and Abiram were mainly from the tribes of Levi and Reuben. They agreed that Moses and Aaron were not giving them the respect and recognition that they deserved, and they believed that they were being unfairly excluded from important leadership roles. However, we do need to say there were also many people who remained loyal to Moses and Aaron, including the other tribes of Israel. By now Korah, Dathan and Abiram have amassed 250 followers, and they ready to now confront Moses and Aaron. Once a large enough group had gathered, they said, "You have gone too far. You are wrong. All the Israelites are holy. The Lord still lives among them. You are making yourselves more important than the rest of the Lord's people." They thought Moses had taken too much power for himself and not given the people a voice. Instantly Moses knows this is wrong, and he throws himself face down in the dust and prays. Moses is slightly angered, but he then responds to Korah, "You Levites, listen to me. You should be happy that the God of Israel chose you to be different from the rest of the Israelites. He lets you come near to him to do the special work in the Lord's holy tent to help the Israelites worship him. Isn't that enough? He brought you Levites near to him to help the priests, but now you are trying to become priests also. You and your followers have joined together and turned against the Lord." Moses knows this situation is bad, for these men are not speaking ill of Moses, but are questioning God's decisions, God's choices. From other stories involving Moses, we all know something bad is going to happen if Moses has to prostrate himself before the Lord. He wants to ensure to the people that the right decisions are being made, so he issues a simple challenge to Korah and his followers to offer incense before God, a task that only the priests, Aaron and his sons, were allowed to do. They would then wait and see if God would light fire in the incense, for once the incense is lit, it will indicate the chosen priests. Moses then calls out the brothers Dathan and Abiram one more time to come and try to discuss this and fix the situation before God takes real action. True to their characters, the brothers' response is, "We will not come. You have brought us out of all and filled with many good things. You brought us to the desert to kill us. And now you want to show that you have even more power over us. Why should we follow you? You did not bring us into the new land filled with many good things. You did not give us the land God promised. You did not give us the fields or the vineyards. Will you make these men your slaves? No, we will not come." You can only imagine now how angry Moses must have been. He is trying to help them in this situation, but they have thrown it back in his face. This is when Moses tells God that in his heart he knows for sure that he has done nothing but good and kind things to these men, and to not light their incense. The next day is the big showdown. Korah and his men are ready to show Moses that they are the rightful priests. They are completely ready to offer the incense. As a group they enter the temple and God shows his judgment. Then the glory of the Lord appeared to all the congregation. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, "Separate yourselves from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment." Moses and Aaron then realize God is about to take out the entire congregation, not just the challengers. Right then and there Moses and Aaron begin pleading for the lives of all who were not involved with Korah and the brothers. Then they fell on their faces. Once again, Moses and Aaron humbled themselves before God. With great love, they asked God to spare all the congregation. Moses then tells everyone to keep away from Korah, Dathan and Abiram, including their tents and families. God punishes them right there and then for their disobedience. The ground beneath them splits open, and the earth swallows them up alive, along with their households and all their possessions. The rest of the Israelites are terrified and flee from the scene. Furthermore, fire comes out from the Lord and consumes the other 250 men who were party to Korah's rebellion. This was Old Testament punishment, brutal and an eye-for-eye style of life. But right now think about Moses and Aaron who put themselves between God and the rest of the people, saving the entire congregation from being swallowed whole or killed by flames. Can we interpret these actions to be like what Jesus is to us now? Just like Moses and Aaron, he is frantically trying to get in between and save, to allow God's grace into as many lives as possible. Romans 8 verses 38 to 39. There is nothing in our future, not even our own deaths, that can keep us from the love of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. There isn't anything that we have done, should have done, or that's being done to us that can keep God from loving us. His love is constant and unstoppable. Know that the Lord is with you today and loves you beyond measure.